when you decided to grow with Death and Co as the brand name and not change the brand, so you would have, if you when you traveled from New York to Denver, Denver to, so every time when you moved to a new city, you didn't think of a new identity, new creation, or was it obviously that was thought of for the brand, assuming the brand name, give you the mileage as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the plan was always to have some more Death and Co's, but not to only and solely focus on Death and Co, not to saturate the market, not to overdo it where it potentially becomes less interesting. So Denver opened, LA shortly behind that. And during that time, and actually after, there were some other brands that popped up. There were some other projects we worked on throughout the country under different names. Lost Hours, there was a project called Sparrow in Fort Lauderdale. We did the Danforth in Portland, Maine, which was very much a restaurant. And boy, was that challenging to say, okay, we know Death and Co so well. It's
Yeah.
got an incredible following. It's known so well. To then create a new brand out of thin air and a new vision and a new, fan base or attempt to was incredibly challenging. It takes a lot more time and energy. I mean, even coming up with a name and a logo, right? Like the time and energy you put into that just to say, hopefully it works is a pretty big risk.
Right.
We're no longer involved in any of those properties, right? Now that was an intentional decision slash COVID decision, but you know, that sort of post COVID as we opened and closed or opened and moved on from projects, we really learned, that it's incredibly hard and we have something really good. So how can we make the most of that without overdoing it? Which is actually sort of the birthplace of close company. You asked when you're moving to different cities,
Yeah.
what we are fortunate enough to have a lot of folks coming to us from different cities and saying, we want a Death and Co, say in Atlanta, right? And maybe it's a developer or it's a fan or it's a cocktail bar that's on its way out and is looking for somebody to move in. We were getting all this, hey, come to our city, which is great, but not every city is necessarily built for a Death and Co. That could be the population base, it could be the location that was being offered may or may not be the best fit for a Death and Go. And that's really where we were like, well, instead of recreating something every time, what if we did create something that's Death and Co esque, has through lines to Death and Co. And in this case, it's really the product. It's what's in the glass, right? That still speaks to Death and Co, but can happen in other places. To be perfectly honest, post COVID, we were aiming for higher margins, higher volume. Cocktail bars, you don't get a ton of people through the door. You don't have huge check
Mhm.
averages, but as Chris and Cliff can probably attest to, you get a lot of people through on a Friday night and have a higher margin in that glass. It can go a long way. So yeah, that's where close company was sort of birthed from, right? It was the goal of we do want to have something else, but not a whole bunch of something else's.
Right.
And so now we can focus just on the two brands. They're different in identity, they're different in style, and they're different in the type of employee we hire, but they're still of place. At the end of the day, they still have that trueness to the guest experience, to the product, and allowing them to become what they are within that city. So it's interesting, they're very, very different. But from our perspective and the way we manage them, they don't feel that different.